So, today I will discuss the rhythms and beats found in sacred drumming, which became popularized and internationalized during the 20th century. The so-called Cuban music we hear today started from these small communities of African slaves trying to retain their culture and religion. The origins of these African-derived traditions began in these compounds called cabildos. These cabildos were first founded to be Catholic confraternities and used to house and group different slaves that arrived in Cuba. Although it started as a mutual aid society, the communities that formed in these cabildos shifted and changed the place into a breeding ground for their religious traditions. Ceremonies and rituals would take place in the privacy and secrecy of their own familiar groups. As you can see in the picture, each section is for one cabildo. It could either be the same group or a different group of Afro-Cubans. The three main religious groups are the Santeria, Palo Monte, and Abaquaw African-derived religions that the slaves would practice. Despite these groups being different, they lived in harmony and had a similar style of sacred music. The basis of these sacred music is drumming. The most recognized drumming rhythm is that of Santeria's bata drums. These drums are sacred music that are only used in ceremonies to call down the orishas because these drums contain a spirit called anya. There are only 3 drums used in the ceremonies, and they must be born from a previous set through a special ceremony. The bata drummers are specially trained to play these drums, and they all contain or learned a repertoire of different beats and rhythms in order to call down specific orishas. Hence, certain beats can only be played in ceremonies, and the beats and rhythms are seen to be mimicking the Yoruba language, which the orishas understand and respond to. Next, I will show a short recording of a Santeria ceremony using the bata to call down the orisha Chango. The man with his face being wiped is the priest that is leading the ceremony. He is dressed in the outfit of Shango in order to further entice the spirit to come down. On your left, you can see the 3 different drummers that were playing the bata drums with the specific rhythms and beats only to call down Shango. Now we'll return back to our slides and we will discuss how the beats and rhythms of these African-derived traditional music became so popular and become identified as Cuban music. As our focus is on the 20th century, there is a rise in secular music after Spain liberated Cuba from slavery, and the people struggle for a national identity. One main genre of secularized Afro-Cuban music is rumba, which started in the shipyards and poor neighborhoods. The characteristic drum rhythms can be heard in old rumba music, as the poor black masses use any kind of surface as their drum, such as their home walls, old dressers. They would pull out barrels, jars, any surface that would allow them to create a percussion noise. Rumba is known for its drum-based music, but it eventually evolved into a ballroom type of genre with very slow beats, as you can see on the right. This is a more modern style of rumba where they are more known for their dance rather than their music. But on your left, you can see a group of rumberos, which are the 2 dancers who would do a call and response type of dancing, where the singers and the players would do a call and response type of singing. And as you can see right here, this is a set of drums that is used in rumba for their main music. Rumba is known for its drum-based music, but it eventually evolved into a ballroom type of genre. I will show you a modern yet Cuban style of secular rumba, and although it is featured in the early 21st century, it is also this type of music and dancing is also seen throughout the late 20th century. As you can hear, they did a call and response type of singing with a lot of repetition. And those multiple drums in the back are their key instruments for this distinct sound of rumba. As you can see now, there is the dance style of the rumba, but with rumba being many different types of styles, this is one of them. And it resembles how as we saw in the previous video, how the Afro-Cubans would perform in their religious ceremonies, following the beats of the drums. There are clearly African-derived influence heard in the drums, rhythms, and beats. Before I talk about the modern type of rumba we saw in this picture, I will discuss the most recognized genre of Cuban music, son. Son is a music and dance style that is seen to be on par with the renowned classics such as Bach and Pachelbel. Son is the musical child of European and Afro-Cuban music with a more African flair. It contained all of the nuances of African-derived religious music, such as the characteristic drumming and the call and response singing. However, it is more accepted because of its European musical components, such as the steadier and calmer sounds. With son being popularized in the 1930s, rumba music began to be accepted by the 1950s because instead of having more European musical sounds, it is more purely African. So it took more time for it to be accepted after son, which was accepted in the 1930s. By the end of the 19th century, rumba incorporated son bolero son rhythms into its music and transformed it into a ballroom type of dance. First, we'll listen to different types of son, or a type of son music played today, and the beginning of the styles of back then. As you can see in this group, there are 6 people, which is the original number of musicians played in son, but eventually the number would increase as different rules began to bend and allowed more musicians and different types of instruments to be played. As seen here, the characteristic percussion sound of drumming can be heard, which shows the influence of African-derived religious music. Next, we'll listen to bolero, which is a similar type of song, and it's a softer and slower type of music which correlates with how European likes their calm and leisurely music, which allowed it to be more internationalized and commercialized. And in the background, and previously we saw how the drums provided a nice background percussion. And in this group, we also see 6 people. Next, I will show you the more modern style of rumba as seen in this dance competition in 2007. Although it's not in the late 20th century, it correlates with the same time frame of how rumba would become changed and molded. Rumba is now, for Robert ballroom dancing, seen as a dance style rather than a musical expression. However, the sensual dance that is seen originated back to the early 20th century, where the dance style accompanied by drums were also very sensual. With these music becoming secularized, the Afro-Cubans and Cubans themselves began to associate themselves with the music that they produced. As we return back to the slides, we can see that the Afro-Cuban music that we hear today and during the 20th century began to shape Cubans' identity, and that all Cubans and even Afro-Cubans began to use music as their nationality. If people heard a distinct drumming in rumba or son music, they know it is Cuban. Thus, the Cuban identity became associated with their music, which originated from the African slaves preserving their distinct musical drum rhythms. That is all for today. Thank you.